The primevals Mephisto, Baal, and Diablo would discover Sanctuary. The three primevals would create Triune, a new religion that would turn humans to their cause. When Inarius discovered this deception and fearful that the high heavens would soon discover Sanctuary themselves and risk fear for his children, he brought forth his own religion similar to the Cathedral of Light, which upheld tenets of heaven and appointed himself as the prophet. This would begin the secret war for mankind, also known as the Sin Wars. The Sin Wars was a secret struggle between Inarius and the great evils, with their goals being to bring humanity to their side in the everlasting struggle of heaven and hell. However, this would be a war that linked man into an ever-ending battle, and would eventually lead to a much darker outcome. During the next decade, both religions, the Cathedral of Light and the Triune, would see agents spread the word throughout Sanctuary, and constructing monuments and bases of power. However, balance began to spiral out of control, as Lilith would return and build her own following referred to as the Edirum, led by the farmer known as Uldyssian. Uldyssian was a simple farmer whose family was ravaged by a plague. He and his brother Mendelin would be the only survivors. This made Uldyssian bitter towards the two religions, the Cathedral of Light and Triune, as they did nothing to save his family. One day Uldyssian met Lilia, who fled her village once her family was stripped of power of the two religions. Infatuated by her beauty, Uldyssian promised to help her. Uldyssian would soon after travel into town and find two traveler missionaries brutally murdered. Even though Uldyssian had nothing to do with it, his knife was found lodged within one of the missionaries' ribcage. Therefore, he was put into prison and charged with murder. But while in prison, Uldyssian was beginning to discover his own powers, and managed to somehow unlock his cell. However, he did not escape. Come to his trial. Just before his sentencing was to be announced, a bolt of lightning struck and killed the Master Inquisitor, followed by a vicious storm which raged with unwinding fury. Uldyssian and Lilia would escape during this time, and even though the storm raged on, once Uldyssian focused on his powers to remove the storm, to his astonishment, the storm dissipated. He was assumed a guilty man for his actions, and desired to run away. He reached out to friends and even his own brother, but all fled the village. He was left with Lilia, who convinced him to use his powers and bring down the Cathedral of Light and the Triune to restore free will to humanity. Uldyssian found that humbling and tempting. Both he and Lilia would travel, and eventually, with their desires to end the two religions, would grow a following. Their travels will lead them to a large town known as Partha, where Uldyssian would reveal to the townsfolk that within every man, magic flowed. But it was at this time where he learned that Lilia was a demon in disguise. Lilith had managed to return from the void and claimed that all that was done was her doing. From the murders to the display of power during his trials, she left him powerless and his confidence destroyed. Uldyssian was nothing more than a mere farmer in his mind, but his true potentials would soon shine. Uldyssian still had his following, and would eventually find their way to the Tauragian jungles, where he would come face to face with Lucian, Lilith's brother. During this battle, Uldyssian would somehow discover his true powers and would claim victory over Lucian easily. It was at this time where Uldyssian would take his followers and head to the city of Taraja, and raise an army to bring down both the Triune and Cathedral of Light. But once they arrived in Taraja, the home of the second largest temple of the Triune, the followers of the religion would turn on the city itself, and the Nephilim stormed their temples to put a stop to the massacres. Lilith, who was in the city, managed to escape. It was at this time where Uldyssian would use his found powers and awake the magic within man, and give birth to the second phase of the Nephilim, called the Edirum. However, during the time in the Sin Wars, the first generation Nephilim known as Rathma sensed the return of his mother Lilith, and would begin his search for her. Lilith, following her departure from Taraja, would return to Inarius on the Cathedral of Light. The Rathma would soon search the temples. Inarius managed to keep Lilith hidden, and revealed himself following the departure, but Inarius knew Lilith couldn't remain, and would bound her into a sphere. During this time, she would promise him defiantly that Uldyssian would be his undoing. Regardless, Inarius would banish Lilith to the void once more, and this time take the necessary steps to have her not return. Inarius was left alone once more, and this time with a threat that was coming his way. Uldyssian and his following of the Edirum would destroy the Triune and would set their eyes on the Cathedral of Light, clashing with Inarius Inquisitors. Once they were defeated, Inarius revealed himself. He would try and use his angelic presence to convert the Edirum to his cause, but Uldyssian outsmarted Inarius, using his power to send an influx of confidence to his following. Thus the battle began, and both Inarius and Uldyssian would send shockwaves of power and magic throughout the lands during their confrontation. Inarius, bounded by the World Stone, seemed to struggle against Uldyssian and his awoken powers, but during his battle something unexpected happened. The heavens opened up, and heavenly hosts finally entered Sanctuary. However, Inarius took advantage of this distraction and managed to seize Uldyssian, but once he did, Uldyssian did something drastic and used his powers to alter the World Stone, thus disconnecting Inarius from it and severely weakening him. Inarius was defeated and captured. Uldyssian would meet with the Inarius Council, the ruling council of the High Heavens, to decide the fate of Sanctuary and Inarius. The council agreed on a ceasefire in Sanctuary, removing angels and demons, and allowing humans to decide what side they chose to fight on in due time. For Inarius, he was given to Mephisto, and was said to be taken to Hell to be tortured for eternity. His wings slowly torn from his body, and his glowing skin stretched by chains and hooks. Inarius was left to see himself misshapen, weak, and powerless at the hands of Mephisto, but his saga was not over. During his time in Hell, a lot has happened in Sanctuary. As a matter of fact, all the Diablo games come after the story of Inarius and Lilith. Therefore, Inarius was tortured this whole time. But decades following the death of the Archangel Malthael, Sanctuary has been reduced to a land of struggle, shattered and hellscaped, and Sanctuary people struggled to survive. In this hell, Lilith was also brought back from the void, and is said to bring with her cultists and worshippers, and is said to bring forth darkness in these lands. Inarius, in his hell prison, either escaped or was released, only to return and find that he still had a following in his land referred to as the Pale Knights, and has set forth to track down Lilith and bring justice, peace, and calm to the lands of Sanctuary once more. This is where Diablo 4 takes us, from a vast history of two lovers who made the lands and people in it, to the struggles of sides in conquest they will seep. The battle between heaven and hell has never stopped, and we appear to be in the middle of it once more.
I have returned to Hell.